Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, and all glories to the assembled devotees. We thank you all for being here today, and thank you for being here, Mother Lila. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Greetings to all the devotees here. Very
Hare
happy
Krishna.
to see you all and be in your presence.
Yeah. We're so happy to have you after more than a month. Yes. So, dear devotees, today we have our own Mother Lila Devi, and she will be delivering the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM discourse today. So we humbly requesting all the devotees to pay close attention, because I believe after the class, there may be some probing questions and comments, probably. So Mother Lila, if you're ready, we'll put the verse on the screen and you may begin.
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you, Sahadev Prabhu. Again, I'm very honored to be here in your association sharing Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a blessing for me to be able to even read this and be interested in it and try to learn something from it. So I'm grateful. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Yasam Tato Jayam Tirayet. I'm going to read these in English because I think sometimes it's helpful to know what these prayers mean. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayesa bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established and is as an irrevocable fact. And today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse 37. Iti langita maryadam takshaka saptame hani dakshanti sma kulangaram kodito me tata druham. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Brahmana's son cursed the king thus: on the 7th day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of that dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. Thus the beginning of the misuse of Brahminical power began, and gradually the Brahmanas in the age of Kali became devoid of both Brahminical powers and culture. The Brahmana boy considered Maharaj Parikshit to be Kulangara, or the wretched of the dynasty, but factually the Brahmana boy himself was so, because only from him did the Brahmana caste become powerless, like the snake whose poisoned teeth are broken. The snake is fearful as long as his poisoned teeth are there, otherwise he is fearful only to children. The personality of Kali conquered the Brahmana boy first, and gradually the other castes. Thus, the whole scientific system of the orders of society in this age has assumed the form of a vitiated caste system, which is now being uprooted by another class of men similarly influenced by the age of Kali. One should see to the root cause of vitiation and not try to condemn the system as it is, without knowledge of its scientific value. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, let's read the this actual translation again. The Brahmana's son cursed the king thus: on the 7th day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of that dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. Those are fighting words. I feel I was listening to our dear Raja Lila give the explanation of the verse before it, and I was thinking, oh, Raja Lila has said everything already, and then she also mentioned that the classes prior, this has all been explained. So what else is there to say? But well, the first thing in this purport, that it's being described how the caste system was vitiated, and that word, I had to look that word up. Thought it was a very interesting word, vitiation. It means to diminish, to spoil, diminish in quality. And so the caste system, which Prabhupada says has a scientific value, it doesn't, we can't condemn it just because this has happened and now it's become weakened and it's become spoiled. So it's not that there's a problem with the system, it's a problem of how we as people, as humans, are managing a system. And we can see how we take this stance in a lot of different ways. That's something we do it with politics, we do it with religion, we do it within our own family systems, that because something isn't working well, we think, well, you know, it's politics, it's the whole government that's the problem, or it's religion that's the problem, not how we as people are engaging with a tradition or a religion, or even with our family. So sometimes we even, you know, leave our families because of the problems, and we think, well, it's the family structure that's wrong, we should just do things on our own. But it's not always the case that the system is faulty, but us as people. And that requires us to look at ourselves deeply and honestly and courageously to see how we contribute to any system that we're in. So the first thing that happened here was that the king, he became angry. This started because he had some unmet needs. He was feeling hungry and thirsty and tired, and he needed some support, some nourishment, some rest, and his needs at the moment weren't met. And so he became angry, he became frustrated. And so out of that anger, he also, he did commit an offense, because he also misunderstood what was happening. In the moment, he thought that he was being purposely ignored, when in reality, the sage that was there he was actually in a deep meditation. He was not fully present to attend to the king. And so in thinking of what is this pastime, there was so much that's already been brought up, but what is this pastime teaching us? What are the opportunities for us to learn about ourselves, and what are the gifts that we can take from this to improve how we relate to each other? Because this happens. And one of the things that was very clear to me was that because the king here, King Parikshit, he is a noble person. He has knowledge, as in the kind of knowledge that Raja Lila was speaking about yesterday, about true knowledge. But still, he was affected by his own unmet needs and what that created in him. And so this idea that it doesn't matter who we are or how much we've learned or how advanced we are, the modes of nature can still affect us deeply, and it can't be taken lightly. We have to stay really vigilant. Prabhupada mentioned this when he said, someone mentioned that they would sometimes fall into Maya. And he said, you're always in Maya. Sometimes you fall into Krishna consciousness. And we forget that, just the power, how powerful and insidious this, the false ego is, but also the modes of material nature. And the only one that's outside of that is the person who is liberated from that. This is what Krishna expresses in the Bhagavad Gita. But Krishna himself, he also says, I am beyond the modes. And so I was thinking, where are the times where, I know that it was brought up some of the times where LILA was saying yesterday that this anger is everywhere. Everywhere the Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about anger and many of the different emotions that cause us problems. But I was thinking about Krishna. What are the times where we see him be angry? And even when Krishna has a response where he needs to protect himself or the other devotees, he doesn't do so in a very angry mood. I was thinking of Putana, when he was a baby. He didn't display anger, but he still had to defeat her, and he actually killed her, and then therefore she was liberated. And then when they were in the sacrificial arena and he was being insulted, he did cut off Shishupala's head, but he wasn't very angry. He just did it as a matter of course because he had given his word that this was what was going to happen, and so he was keeping his promise that he would only accept a certain number of insults. So we see Krishna angry on the battlefield when he's protecting Arjuna, which is one of the most beautiful pastimes of him protecting his devotee, willing to break his promise and to go against his word to protect Arjuna with Bhishma. But also he was displaying that anger because he was fulfilling Bhishma Dev's desire to see Krishna angry. And so it wasn't because Krishna is subject to falling falling victim to the modes of material nature. He's actually purposely engaging with these emotions, with these reactions for a reason. So it's not like they take over him and he doesn't know what's happening and then reacts. He's actually employing these different emotions that are also found. They have their counterpart in the spiritual world. It's described that anger is one of the secondary rasas, and so it is part. And also Prabhupada says that the only reason we have the ability to get angry is because it's a quality or something that happens within Krishna. Because Krishna can have anger, therefore we can have anger. And so this actually comes from Krishna. There isn't anything that doesn't come from him. The problem is that we let it overtake us. And if we're not vigilant, we don't, it can cause us to react in a way that doesn't come from our true self. So that's the difference with anger. Anger in itself is not the problem. It's how we employ it and how we engage with it. So it reminded me of intoxication, because we can actually, this is what one of the things Rajalila was explaining yesterday, that all of there's these physiological response that happens in the body, and these hormones, we can actually become intoxicated by them. That's why she was explaining that you can actually lose your senses, your mind, and react in a way that maybe isn't the way we would have done it if we would stay present and stay conscious. And so this is similar to what Prabhupada is saying about the system. It's not that the system is broken, it's the things that are happening within the system. And so this is the system, any tradition, any political party, anything in our society that is seen as a whole that way is made up of people. And so one of the things that happened here, it's saying that this Brahmana boy was, he was taken over by the personality of Kali. So first Kali conquered this Brahmana boy. So I was thinking that's a lot of pressure to put on a young boy, that now you've been, so what is really happening here? And one thing that's happening is that because this boy, he represents immaturity. He represents the immaturity that we can have in ourselves, just a lack of proper understanding. He became the weakest link. And so this is where the false ego attacks. This is where Kali came in and conquered at the weakest point. of any given system. And so it's similar to how our immune system works, that when there's some weakening in the system, then this is where something else or someone else, whether it's a germ or it's the modes of goodness or another person or something, this is where it attacks at the weakest point. And so what does this mean for us? I'm sure that, or at least for me, there are still places where there's room for growth, where there's still some immaturity and understanding, and I don't mean that as a judgment, as, oh, you know, I'm an immature person or something like that, but there are parts of me, parts of us sometimes, where there's room for growth. And so to understand these as our little weak links, where maybe we can reinforce those areas, by becoming aware of them, by being really honest with ourselves and seeing what are my reactions, how do I behave when this happens. It requires a lot of diligence, and it requires attention, and to be fully present with myself and what's happening at any given moment, because these are the places where things start to creep in, and then sometimes we can cause ourselves problems, just like the Brahmana boy caused himself problems. So we can become intoxicated by these things. And again, it's not the thing itself that's the problem, it's how we relate to it. And so how do these things come into our consciousness and affect us? There are two ways. One is that we become attached to material designations. And this is what happened in this pastime, that the Brahmana boy was very attached to his position as a Brahmana and his father as a Brahmana. And so because of that, he felt some entitlement. Well, I deserve respect because, so see how the material designation came first. And then from that material designation grows the entitlement, that now I deserve this. Now I'm entitled to respect. I'm entitled to a certain kind of treatment. And so then the second thing that happened was that, or happens, is that our senses become employed in the service of our own ego and our own false identity. So we have the material designation, which is not our true identity. That's why it's the material designation. So I am this, I am that, and therefore I deserve this. And then the senses, this is what they're picking up on. They're being used in this way to service my false ego and these false identities that I have. And so this is where the Krishna consciousness process starts to become alive and real for us, because it addresses these two things that become the weak links in our spiritual life, in our practice. And I don't, maybe not spiritual life, that may not be the right way to say it, because it's our entire life. It comes in spiritual life, material life, there's no difference. It's just a matter, because it's all Krishna, it's just a matter of our consciousness. So Krishna consciousness addresses these two things and brings us to maturity by helping us understand what is my true identity. And we have the understanding that all of these material designations, including the designation of being a Brahmana, there's actually something higher than that, and that is to be a Vaishnava. And so these become our values. And then what happens with our senses is that by attaching them to these highest values, if we think of our highest value, it's our true identity. Who am I really outside all of these other material designations? And then our senses start to feed those values. And because the value is directly related to Krishna, because our true identity is related directly to Krishna, we are same and different, then our senses by becoming attached to Krishna, by being used in Krishna's service, by being used in service to our true identity and the remembrance and the living from that true identity, this is what brings us that maturity. And so we can understand these things. Yeah, I see this too. Yeah, I want to be that when I grow up too. I want to be a Vaishnava. And so I think if I keep hanging out with all of you, something at some point will start to rub off on me. And then one day I'll be mature. So this is where it becomes, it's in these moments that seem, I mean, think about it. If we think about the regular interactions that we have in our lives, they seem very mundane. They seem sometimes very, especially when they have to do with anger or envy or entitlement or frustration, we think, oh, this can't be spiritual. This is just material things. But no, these are the little doors and the windows for us to see into how we are conditioned. Because when we think of how I'm conditioned, I'm also thinking about what does it mean to not be conditioned, because I'm in the process of trying to be Krishna conscious. And so these seemingly mundane moments, everything that seems material is actually a doorway to the spiritual, because it can bring us to that place. But we have to really, I think it requires a lot of courage to be willing to look at these parts of ourselves that aren't always the most pleasant. We're talking about anger. How do I respond when people don't do exactly what I want them to do, or behave in a way that I don't think they should behave in? Or if people don't give me what I want. LILA spoke a lot about how lust isn't just a physical thing. It also has to do with wanting respect, wanting adoration, wanting to have a certain type of appreciation. And so how do I behave when I don't get that way? These things are the most valuable. And sometimes they're the things that we don't want to look at. We want to just, everything's okay. I'm chanting, everything's fine. I'm such a great practitioner. But what about those other parts? Those are really, and it is true, yes, because we're even attempting to chant, that is actually a huge blessing that we have. And that shouldn't be taken lightly, as if it's not a big deal. It's actually a really big gift that we've been having. Even to want to try to chant is a huge blessing. But what about, how do I express my anger? How do I hurt others when I'm hurt or I'm angry? How long do I hold on to resentment and indignation, right? To feel indignant is to feel that we've been treated unfairly. And so now I'm upset about that. That's my indignation. And it happens a lot, going to the store, oh, this person treated me so badly, or what do you call road rage? Oh, this person cut me off, or this person said the wrong thing that just was really hurtful, or someone behaved in a way that was hurtful to me. And how long do I hold on to that? Like this boy, he was not able to think clearly and to let it go. This misuse of power that caused harm to another person. So it was like LILA was saying yesterday, he has a lot to teach us about ourselves and about how we respond. And so it's very easy to say, oh, well, this is what we'll do when people become angry. And it's always someone else's problem. It's always, what they're doing. And I'll just be forgiving, and I'll just be tolerant, and all of these things and this is good. But what about when we do it? Sometimes it's easier to just look at, how someone else is not doing the right thing than to look at how we're not doing the right thing, or just misinformed. So these two wrongs don't make a right. That the king also didn't know how to manage in that moment his his unmet needs and what he really needed in that moment. He wasn't feeling well, which is why, you know, he went into the hut to begin with. But then the reaction of the boy to seek revenge, that's not going to make it better either. And so it's important to see it that way. You know, he was thinking, well, the laws of, this is what is described here, the laws of etiquette have been broken. And so it starts off that way as, again, going back to that entitlement, I should be treated in a certain way. So there's a tool that's often used called the empowerment dynamic. And the empowerment dynamic takes these three roles that we can take during any interaction with another person, with a situation. It doesn't even have to be a person. It can be a situation. It can be a thing where we go either from being a victim, or we become the persecutor, or we become the rescuer. And so we become a victim when we think someone has wronged us, or some situation is unfair. Why has this happened to me? Why is this going on? Or why did they do this to me? Why did they behave that way? It could even be something that causes us grief, some disease, something that's out of our control. Someone losing a family member, we start to get into this, oh, why has this happened? This is all happening to me. Why is Krishna doing this? Why is this karma happening? So we take on a little bit of a victim role. Or we can take on the persecutor. We feel someone has wronged us. And so then we take on this role of, well, this is what the boy did. He actually had a lot of these going. He had all of these going on in just this one pastime. He thought, well, I will be the one who shows them, you know, I will be the one to show what the right thing is to do. I'll fix all of it. And so he persecutes the king. Or we can be a rescuer, right? By being a rescuer is the seeing that someone needs some help, and we think that, oh, I'm so great, I will just go and rescue them. They need my help. And so this is what he was doing. He was becoming a rescuer with his father. He's thinking, well, I'll go and avenge him. But when we become rescuers, we actually disempower another person. And to be a rescuer in this particular sense, the way it's described within this tool called the empowerment dynamic, is that to be a rescuer, it's really much more about our own ego and our own sense of power. And, you know, I will rescue you and you'll thank me later. And so it actually disempowers people. Or, you know, when someone comes to us with a problem, we just want to fix it for them. But when we do that, we take away their own power to fix it for themselves, to show up for it. And so the empowerment dynamic takes those three roles that we play and it flips them around. And so instead of being a victim to something, we learn to see it from a different perspective of what can I do here? What is within my power to do? How can I respond in a way that brings growth and maturity and learning? So becoming a creator, not like Krishna creator, but with a little c creator, as in, how do I want to respond? How do I want to create in this moment so that I'm creating the best possible outcome for myself? And that usually has to do with the things that I can control, which is my reaction, my response to any given situation, even a perspective. Having a certain perspective allows me to choose how I want to be with a situation or in a specific relationship. So that's the opposite of being a victim, is to be a creator, choosing, choice, sacred choice. How do I choose? And we know that if we choose our highest values, our highest values are attached to Krishna, because it's about who we truly are. So any decision made with our highest values in sight will just bring us there. So also the opposite of being a what was the second one? A persecutor is to be a challenger rather than persecute someone and show them, is maybe to ask the right questions and to help ourselves and help people rise up to a challenge. Because to rise up to a challenge that's being presented, is much different than becoming the attacker, the persecutor. So for example, in this past time, the Brahmana boy could have said, well, how can I respond to this? How do I create some change rather than going and attacking the king? So perhaps he could have had a conversation with him and maybe started some, I don't know, some social movement to increase respect for Brahmanas, something. He could have created something else rather than becoming the attacker. And then we have the last one was to be a rescuer. So how do we shift that around? Because this is also what he was doing. He was thinking, well, this is what, and LILA brought this up yesterday, now Krishna's gone, now it's up to me. I have to defend everyone. I have to defend the whole etiquette system, how Brahmanas are treated. I have to put these Kshatriyas in line. So I must be the one to do it. But rather than rescuing, he could have, what is the opposite of a rescuer? He could have been a coach, right? Someone of support. So in this particular case, it seems like his father actually would have known what to do. So maybe he wouldn't have needed that kind of help. But instead of rescuing people, perhaps we can just be there. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to just maintain our own sense of centeredness, of our own sense of self, our own sense of integrity, and just be that that stability who's standing next to someone, to offer strength that way, rather than trying to fix other people's problems. We see this is more evident when we have children, and we just want to fix it for them. We want to take them out of their suffering. But sometimes it's a little bit harder, but it's more beneficial to just stand with care and with integrity and just let them sort it out, to be a support in that sense, maybe offer some guidance, some advice if it's fitting, but to let people do it for themselves. And so in any of these roles, there's always, we can always make the choice to seek the higher road, the higher perspective, and the road that's going to bring us to more of that maturity that we're looking for. So that we just become aware of these weak links within ourselves. And again, weak isn't a judgment. It just shows us the places where we can actually work a little bit more. And then these are the things that we offer to Krishna. Krishna, I'm having, I've noticed I'm having these kinds of reactions, or it's hard for me to overcome this. And then we offer it. And then that's the in-between, that's the connecting piece between chant and be happy. Chant, become aware of what's going on within me, offer it to Krishna, and then I'll be happy. So there's an upward moving process. It's not that by ignoring how we are and ignoring our reactions and ignoring the places that can use some attention within us, they'll just go away. It doesn't, I mean, Krishna can take away anything that he wants, but often it looks like they're here to teach us a lesson. They're not here just by accident. We don't have certain conditionings just because it's just arbitrary that we have certain things. They're actually there because we've practiced those things. We've practiced for lifetime after lifetime. We've been practicing resentment and practicing anger and practicing entitlement and practicing selfishness. That's why they're here. And so I think it's just we have to look at it. We have to be really diligent about looking into ourselves with some kindness and some compassion. Because I've been practicing this so long, this is why it's here. Not because I'm intrinsically flawed and I'm just an awful person and will never be will never be a devotee, we'll never get it right. That's not the proper attitude either, because we're all trying, right? And so to take that to ourselves is also not very helpful. Okay, so this is how Krishna's showing us about anger through this pastime, but we talked about how he personally deals with anger. Anger comes from him, and there's the opportunity in this pastime to think about how we can deepen our Krishna consciousness, and two very practical ways of doing that are to see what material designations am I attached to in this situation, and then how am I engaging my senses to feed that? And how can I make that shift of maybe putting my true identity, my spiritual designation as the highest, moving in that direction and using everything that I can, everything that's within my power, my control, such as my reactions and things like that, and my perspective, and using that as in the service of my true identity, not in the service of my false ego, the things that are just going to grow my false ego and grow my pride, right? Because this was the Brahminical pride of the young boy, that like, I'm a Brahmana and my father's a Brahmana, I should be treated as such. But it doesn't always, we won't always get that kind of treatment. But that leads us to another question. This is something that I think it's important. I'd like to hear from different people here. How do I engage being tolerant and forgiving, and how do I engage these things of being humble and learning not to take offense? How do I manage that and balance it with having healthy boundaries and at the same time not letting people abuse me or abuse some situation, because this can also happen, right? And if we go to one extreme too much, then we'll find ourselves with boundaries that don't really help us in our growth, and they don't keep us healthy. And it also doesn't, when we don't have proper boundaries and we don't have healthy dynamics with other people, it can also harm another person. Because if someone's behaving in a way that's not only harmful to us, but harmful to their own growth and their own spiritual process, that's not healthy either. So to, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but to allow for those things is also not good. And so how do we find that balance of, I really want to be humble. I don't want to walk around thinking that everyone owes me respect. That's not, Trinadapi Sunichena. This is what it's saying, to not expect a certain kind of respect from people, and always, certainly I'm going to be disappointed. There's going to be someone who's not going to treat me the way that I want to be treated. And so how do I balance that with really wanting to be humble, but balancing it with not letting myself be abused and mistreated, because that's not okay either. So I guess this is the question for you. I struggle with this all the time. I want to be humble, but sometimes it seems that people just, for whatever their conditioning is and what they're going through, it seems like things aren't so appropriate. So I'm just curious, how do you handle that? What do you do? How do you try to see it so that we can move towards that humility and this understanding that people aren't always going to act the way I want them to. But how far does that go? So I'm just curious if anyone has any ideas, any thoughts about this. I want to hear from you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother Lila. So this is a question Mother Lila has thrown it to us. Anyone who would like to share, please give me a green.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
yes.
Linda.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, I wrote some notes, but they're at my desk right now. So I think I love the fact that you've transitioned the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM class into like a feeder for information, because that's also necessary. SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM is information, but this catalyst for understanding how, people as they choose to share deal with things that can block our Krishna consciousness, or at the very least, cloak it, put an opaque screen between the goal and us. I think it's important to understand that in being Krishna conscious, this is in my Guru Maharaj's, serving him directly for so many years, and being very appreciative of his Vapu and Vani, reflectively after his leaving the planet. It's important to continue studying and educating ourselves, but also doing the internal work. And I think this class reflects that on a certain level. But it's also very important to understand things that are not generally spoken, which is that our emotions are not other than Krishna consciousness. The path of bhakti has so many lanes and avenues. And one of those is to understand that bhakti yoga is the yoga of emotion, which is rarely spoken, rarely spoken. And I attempt to share this, not from a place of creating any kind of conflict with those who are educating others. But if we understand that bhakti yoga is the yoga of emotion, and we can see it in what we read and the experiences and the teachings, we see that there are emotions. Arjun had anxiety. He was bewildered. He had so many things that emotionally weighed him down, and he was able to move through it with Krishna's coaching to the place of accepting and surrendering from a perspective of, moving farther on the path. These emotions that we have are not other than our spiritual practices, but we have to learn to transition them to a place where they become tools for us to reach our goals rather than triggers. Generally, our emotions, if they are not met, or at least addressed in some way with either love or guidance as children, lead us to a place of unmet need and turmoil as adults, because the healing didn't happen or the need was not met. So we as devotional practitioners, we are not in any way free from that. Once we take initiation, we have to learn how to use it in a way that equates to Krishna consciousness. So anger can be a tool and sometimes is necessary if we understand the perspectives of how it can relate to service in Krishna consciousness. That doesn't mean that we forget etiquette or, I don't want to say rules necessarily, because bhakti outweighs rules. But the premise of women, children, elderly, Brahmins, and cows are to be protected. So if in that way someone is acting in a way that equates to anger, you've already stepped outside of the bounds of what should be done. You never put your hands on. We must understand that anger can be used as a tool to protect those designated in the area that I just spoke of. So if it's used to abuse, then the bhakti is not involved. We are all privy to anger and to misgivings on how these emotions and what we need to do can be used. I myself included. It's important to take a step back if you can. And if you can't, at the very least, as my Guru Maharaj would say to us, the first thing you do is apologize if you do something that is not correct, spiritually or otherwise. If you can't operate on that level, then there's more education and prayer and other modalities that can help. But generally, if we're at that level, then we should hope that other people can pray for us and forgive us, and that we can also one day do the same, but keep going on the path to reaching, consciousness about Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Mitravinda Prabhu, that was so eloquent. Thank you. Well said. I love this point, the yoga of emotion, and that they don't have to be obstacles. This is something that I think we, as we're on this path, we struggle with sometimes, thinking that to be detached means that I don't feel anything anymore. And they don't actually go anywhere. They just come out, the emotions that aren't honored in a way, no matter what the emotion is. Yes, you're right. Then we end up with these unmet needs and just unhealthy ways of either not knowing how to express something or expressing it in a way that's inappropriate. So seeing them as not obstacles. And then also what you said about Krishna, about anger as a tool. And this was why I brought up these pastimes of Bhishma Dev, and then we see it with Jagai and Madai. Lord Chaitanya was very angry when Lord Nityananda was injured. And so in that way, he used anger as he was trying to protect his devotee, and as Nrsingadev too. So yeah, that the fact that it is useful. And then the idea is, how am I using this anger? I really appreciate these points. Yeah, and you mentioned Arjuna was also in anxiety. I mean, everything starts off that way in the Gita, right? He was having a meltdown, and that was appropriate in the moment, and it caused him to surrender to Krishna. So I really think that it's really important, those things that you're bringing up. So perhaps we can see them as obstacles, our emotions as not as obstacles, but as stepping stones for our growth. I appreciated that very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mother Lila. We have Mother Sati, please unmute.
Sati, I haven't seen you in so long. Nice to see you.
Hey, Krishna, nice to see you too. Actually, what you're talking about kind of hit home, because I was I'm staying on a farm now, and I'm interacting. I'm doing pujari service, interacting with so many different pujaris and different people here, and lately everyone's just been getting on my nerves, and so it just kind of hit home. And so I've been learning how to what this means, why things are disturbing me, why things are happening. And I remember in Africa, when I lived there, I felt like I was so absorbed because my Gurudev was there that I was able to rise above everything that was getting on my nerves. But here it seems like I'm caught up in it. And so just learning how to react and how not to react, and just having having patience, and just learning how to navigate through all this has been a challenge for me. And a lot of times it's just stepping back. And my husband, he gets so he has that anger thing because he doesn't like seeing his wife be disturbed by different things that are happening with different devotees. And so sometimes he writes something to them for me, and it turns out nicely, and he's able to put words together better than I am. But at other times I'm just learning that and you were saying about courage, which I appreciate, and I was thinking that it's and I think I don't have courage because I can't say to people what I feel, or I can't tell them what I'm thinking. But then I was thinking that courage is actually the courage to practice Krishna consciousness and to do the thing that's most hard. And maybe sometimes to do the thing that's most hard is just to be quiet and not to respond and not to say everything that's in your head to somebody. So like I just learned that, and so I'm just learning when to tell somebody, hey, the way you're acting is disturbing my devotional service, and then when just to be quiet and silent and patient, just to wait and just to see how like maybe I need to be more observant in my Krishna consciousness and not be disturbed by all these little things, and just see why these things are happening. And so it just kind of hit home because a lot that's going on right now with me. To see that like social service, I don't know why it's happening, and it just seems very like mundane, but it's affecting me, and I wish it wasn't. So yeah.
Thank you, Sati. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is what, for me, I'd like to, people to keep expressing this, because both are true. At least this is what I've experienced, that both things are true. There is a time when we have to tell someone, this is not okay. Make a request. This is how I'm, this is how I'm feeling about this. And then make a request of perhaps, asking people to just be different or engage in a different way. And then there are times where I've noticed also like, oh, this is just the time for me to just maybe observe, feel what I'm feeling, and, try to be more tolerant. And so the discernment, I think, will be different, and we'll be able to know when is the time to speak up and when is the time to not. But I just wanted to mention to you that what you were saying about courage, the courage for you to feel what you're feeling, I think that's big, because it happens to all of us, where it's sometimes so painful and it brings up so many different things. I've practiced this a lot in other parts of my life, where I just work very, very hard to cover up the things and not feel, and find a way to distract myself or to self-soothe and just pretend that it's not there. So I just wanted to acknowledge that even feeling what we're feeling is the courage. Yeah.
You mentioned how I remember you mentioned how when you have something going on in your life, how you can feel it and move through it and then let it go. How you have to like do that. And so I've just been focusing on it lately also. Like I don't want to respond right away. I just acknowledge I have to have this feeling. I have to like feel the anger or feel the hurt, and then I have to like let it pass. And that's what has been helping a lot also. I remember like gradually said it before lectures, and I remember Bhakti Swami saying that in his lectures.
Yeah, that takes a lot. I mean, I think we, as a society, we see that we try to kind of numb ourselves to a lot of the things that are happening, or blame someone else. That's what we do. That we all do these kinds of things. So I'm just appreciating how you're showing up for everything that's coming up. Yeah, thank you, Sati.
Hare Krishna, thank you for helping answer Mother Sati's question and concern. Mother Mitravinda, please, you may unmute.
Yes, Hare Krishna. So I wanted to, if I might, hearing Sati and, Lila Devi Dasi creating this opening on the pages is essential. But I wanted to say that, it's important to understand emotions and to not ignore them, but learn how to, give them attention to where they, like children, feel cared about, feel that they exist and they're taken care of. And at the same time, then they kind of leave you alone after a bit. You understand? When people are if they're not met in childhood, then they're just built up, and then they just slam one day, they just bombard. And so people are taking out this anger and all these emotions on people that they serve with for something very, very small. And it's not even the catalyst for it. And it's really something that happened long ago or something that was built up. And so this is how we create these offenses, right? but at the same time, we're not robots, to be grave, to be staunch, these are things we hear quite often, but there's not a lot of directive giving to understanding it. We as living beings, we're connected to Radharani and Krishna. So when we ignore these emotions, instead of proactively and in an educated way, considering Krishna consciousness, give energy to heal and not suppress, but address these emotions, we can move forward in being a community that shows care internally and gives the necessary aspects of Krishna consciousness externally outside in Lord Chaitanya's mission. In that way, we can actually be serving. If we don't take care of it inside, what are we giving to anyone outside? How are we inviting them in? What are we inviting them into? And this is not a criticism. This is care. This is care for what happens to my God brothers and God sisters. This is care for wanting to understand and appreciate and protect what happens for myself and my children and their experiences, and then the experiences of others. This is something that is actually based on the philosophy of care and understanding. This is Krishna consciousness. When we consider these things, as well as the 9 processes and deity worship and every other aspect of what we consider service, this is actually a part of service as well. And so inasmuch as we here, each one of us on this Zoom, do that, as well as those who have positions that appear to be higher, but there is no position higher. If we are serving, there's no position greater than or less than, but we're not robots. If we're feeling robotic or we're just going through, whether it's chanting japa or how we deal with each other or stuffing our emotions, we're not being Krishna conscious or otherwise. So again, I have no desire to be critical. Sometimes I come off that way, but it is care and experience and my own processing and healing that I'm portraying. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Jai, again, that was like a mic drop. Don't suppress, address. I love that. Yeah, this is, what you were mentioning, Mitravinda, just reminded me a lot about compassion, the compassion for ourselves and what we're feeling. Like Sati was displaying, she's feeling, and then that compassion for, like what you said, little children. These are the parts of myself that are going through this, and, just bringing that compassion, not drowning in it, which, I recognize that very well, but also the compassion for why other people are behaving the way that they're behaving and their inability to manage their own emotions that causes them to offend and to be whatever it is, irritable or aggressive or whatever it is, that's also coming from a place of hurt or something that hasn't been expressed or felt or addressed, like you said. So yeah, and then if we, looking at that within us, within our society, because otherwise, yeah, what are we sharing with people? That's an incredible point. None of it, what you were saying just sounded really, it is part of that maturity that we were talking about. And it didn't sound critical at all. I think it's just pointing in the right direction, but I like that. You can make t-shirts, address, don't suppress. Thank you for that. I'm going to borrow that.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother Lila, for the class. I have a question. And my question is, because we've been discussing about Shringi and how rude he was, for him to have the gut to say the words he said is unbelievable. Now, but one aspect I'm looking at is that it appears that what he did was right. The reason I'm saying what he did was right, excuse me, is that he was trying to protect, defend his father, which every son is supposed to. But the way and manner he did it is what we understand to be wrong. So Srila Prabhupada said in yesterday's text, which is 36 in the purport, Srila Prabhupada emphatically said that what Shringi did was a mistake. So who am I to say it wasn't a mistake? Yes, it was a mistake. But the reason why he committed that mistake cannot also be overlooked. And that is, if you hear, because Shringi was playing with his friends, and they were all young boys. And then his friends told him, oh, we didn't know that your father is also Lord Shiva. Because Lord Shiva has snake around his neck. Your father also has snake around his neck. But the only difference is that Lord Shiva's snake is a live snake, and the snake around your father's neck is a dead snake. So that infuriated the boy. Says, who could have done that to my father? And so, not knowing who did it, made this curse. So, in effect, he did this to give some sense to the father that I have a son who is ready to protect me, to defend me. So in a situation where someone has good intentions of doing something, but does not approach it the proper way, then there is a problem. That's what Srila Prabhupada was saying, there is a mistake. So for us as aspiring devotees, this anger, like you're saying, is a primary trait that we all have it. No. And Srila Prabhupada in chapter 1 of Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada talks about the 5 principal rasas that we all have with Krishna. But he says, besides these 5 principles, there are 7 other, subsidiary rasas. And one of such rasas is laughter, and one is anger. So if one is being trained and knows how to use the anger, like you all are saying, then it's a very powerful asset. It's a very powerful asset. But because most of us are not trained, when we do use this anger, it's almost always in a negative way, and it's very destructive. So my question to you is, at our stage, it's a very long question, right? It's a class and then with a question. I'm sorry. At our stage, how do we effectively use our anger in such a productive way so that we do not become like Shringi? Even though he had good intentions, but because of immaturity and impatience, he did what he did. Of course, eventually, he later regretted and approached Maharaj Parikshit and apologized to him. But what do we do in our neophyte state? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sahadev. That's a great question. I think there's 2 things. I think the first one, especially when it comes to anger, we have to slow down, or any other emotion. We have to slow down and think before we speak, and think before we act. And I think, and this is what he didn't have a complete understanding of the situation, because he wasn't there, he just heard. And sometimes, because anger comes on so quickly and so strong, we often don't find the space in between the anger and the reaction. But this is part of the practice, where we have to pause, especially in this world where everything is going so fast. And to slow down actually is difficult. We're not practiced at it, because the world is moving so fast. And I don't know in other places how it is, but here you notice it a lot. Everyone is doing, even in different states within the same country, people have different rhythms of moving, so sometimes there are places, and some of us that are just more, we're just at that pace, like people in New York or something, you know, living in that part of the country, everything needs to happen really, really fast. You're going from one place to another really fast. You're speaking fast. If you don't give someone an answer right away, they're, you know, oh, what's wrong? Everything, we expect everything fast. From going to the store, we want the cashier to be fast and effective, and we expect that of ourselves too. So our reactions are fast, what we say to people, but we don't take the time to slow down and actually think and actually collect all the information. So it's not wrong to be protective of someone and to do something in that mood, but he wasn't fully informed. And I think that happens too when we react very quickly. We're not fully informed. We haven't really thought about what value do I want to respond from? What do I want to say? Or why is this even happening? Such as, why is this person doing this or saying that or doing it that way? And if I can have some preliminary understanding, then I can move into it with having more information. And so I think that's the number one thing that we don't do. We don't slow down, so we don't actually know exactly what I'm feeling. Anger is usually hiding something else. Behind anger, we're usually angry, sure, because of some injustice. That's something that has happened, but often we're hurt, and so we react with anger. So there's sadness and pain that causes our anger. And if we're not aware of that, we don't have the full story in anything. So first we have to collect the information, and then we can respond once we have the idea. So there's usually sadness or some kind of pain that causes our anger. Not always, but sometimes there's more to the story. Understanding why someone did something, perhaps inquiring, having a dialogue. But the problem, I think, just becomes when we react without thinking, and maybe trying to find that little bit of space between what just happened and what do I say or what do I do. And this is what Sati was saying, like sitting with whatever's happening, acknowledging this is what I'm feeling, and then deciding, do I need to respond or do I need to just work it out within myself? And then the answer may be different, but we have to think first. And then about this, was he really, the other thing is just questioning our motives, because sure, the Brahmana boy may have been wanting to protect his father, but he wasn't so in tune with that. He didn't say that. He just said, oh, these Kshatriyas, they think they can do whatever they want, so Krishna's not here to do it, so I'll show them. He didn't really say, oh, my poor father, I have to go and protect him. He was really thinking about his own, his own entitlement. So that's just a thought maybe about, yeah, wanting to be clear what our motives are, why we're doing what we're doing. So definitely slowing down. That seems like a good option, to slow down and think before we respond or before we do something. Perhaps even seeking someone else's opinion, someone who's a bit more objective. So it seems very practical. What do you think?
Well, what else can I say when you have spoken? Very beautiful answer, very beautiful response.
It's
But-
very hard to slow down. It's not easy, I think, at least my experience.
I mean,
trying it.
it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
When everything around you is moving so fast, it's difficult to slow down. If you slow down, you're going to be blown away and fall down. So you have to flow with the flow. But it's very important that we slow down, as you're saying, because if we don't, then we're likely going to be like a shrinking. It's interesting how everything there is in life to happen has already happened. And we have the scriptures to tell us how it happened, why it happened, and what we need to do to avoid or deal with it. Those we cannot avoid, when they do come, we will know how to deal with it. So the scriptures are our keys, and we have the spiritual masters, advanced devotees, and devotees in general who are also helping guide us, because sometimes one may have the keys and put the keys in the doorknob and still may not be able to open the door because he still doesn't know how to use the key. So the spiritual master is there to help us learn how to use the key to unlock. So thank you for being here, and thank you for the guidance. And Mother Sati, what Mother Sati was expressing is just too common. I mean, it's unfortunately, it's nothing new, and it's not going to die tomorrow. It's still going to be here with us till the end of time. We just have to learn how to deal with it. One devotee, Anandi Nidanam, shared something on our WhatsApp African platform, I think 2 or so days ago. And I remember this situation because it had happened to me. One devotee had complained. Well, I'm trying to be a gentleman, so I will use the word complain. But he did not complain. He did something else. He had gone to my temple leader, who at the time was His Grace Srivas Vanachari, that Sahadev is doing some bad things out there, because I was quite good in book distribution, and I was quite good in bringing to temple some Lakshmi. So this devotee, sorry to say guy, this devotee had told Srivas Prabhu that I have girlfriends, not girlfriend, girlfriends. And these girlfriends are giving me Lakshmi. So when I heard about that, I gave him some distance. And we were very good friends. So when I gave him some distance, then he went and reported me to Srivas Prabhu that I have no more friends with him. So I was called and kind of scolded why I'm no more friends with the guy. So I said, yeah, I've always been crazy. So I told Shivas, is it not said that in Krishna consciousness, there is no friendship? So he's not my enemy, but looking at who he is not somebody I can be too close to. I will respect him from a distance. And that's what I did. And another Nidanam posted something like that. So as devotees, we are human beings. We live in this human body. And sometimes devotees, we try to live like we are no more in this material world. So we are in this material body. We have feelings. Our feelings can get hurt. And if our feelings are hurt, we will not be able to perform at our best. So in order to safeguard myself, this is what I do. I'm not saying everybody should do it, but this is what I do. If I feel somebody is getting on my nerves to the point that I cannot help it, I give a distance and still give him or her respect. At all costs, I try to give each and everyone respect. But if it is too much to bear, then I step away a little bit. So my suggestion is that if any of us living wherever and the situation is too tough, it's too unbearable, you don't have to leave the place entirely. You may leave for a while, see how things go, and then you go back. So that is what I would say. I'm sorry for taking over your class, Mother Lila.
No, this is great. I love that story. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that, because it is true. Yeah, we're human. We have all the things and this is what it means to be human, right? To go through all of these things. And animals aren't so much concerned about it. They just, or they're busy with other things. So it is a blessing for us. And to just create a little bit of that psychic space that you said. Yeah, because that's part of it too, that we think, oh, well, if I were more advanced, I would love everyone and everyone would love me and there wouldn't be any, but the reality of it is that human relationships don't always work that way. We're not always, only Krishna, this is what Rambaru would say a lot, only Krishna can be friends with everyone. And to think that I'm going to be friends with everyone, I will love everyone and everyone will love me, that's not realistic. Yeah, especially when we have lots of things to teach each other. But yeah, it's true that we do have all these emotions. We are humans, and it's there's part of that. This is it is part of it, and that we can't deny it. But creating a little bit of that psychic space is also helpful. Loving people from afar, that's still compassion, that's still unconditional love. So yeah, it's a practice. I appreciate that. Sometimes I've heard this, or someone said this to me about how they handle it, that they don't want to give, they don't want to, they're renting out a room in their mind for the people that have offended them. They're just staying there free of charge, not paying any rent, but just living in the mind. Because we get so attached to what someone did or someone said and all of these things and want it to be different. And so we're always thinking about it. And then that person's literally living with us, because we have we're not able to express or to think that, we're able to share that we're upset or bothered or, injured. So all of that honesty is really, really, really important. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Talking about, anger, Sri Prabhupada also said that, because you were referencing Lord Chaitanya, how he is the Supreme Lord, but he was angry because Lord Nityananda was injured. And you also asking, has anyone seen Krishna at any point being angry? Yeah, Krishna as far as I know, the little that I know, Krishna also has anger, but the way he displays his anger is different from the way we display our anger. And a point in comparison, or something to help us understand what I'm trying to say, is that when someone is an ordinary person and wants to give an order, he screams and yells, you know. But one who actually has control, when he gives order, it's very smooth. They don't yell, you know, like a president of a country, when they say, okay, no flights to this country, they just come and then they announce it smoothly. And all the agents are going to make sure that it happens. So Krishna, as we know Krishna, he also has anger, but when he does act, even in that angry mood, his body doesn't demonstrate the sort of symptoms our body will when we are angry. But in his form as Balaram, he demonstrates. And usually when someone is mischievous, he hardly demonstrates anger. And Krishna is the master mischief. And so because he is the master mischief, even though he is playing you something inconveniencing to you, but he does it in a very lovable manner, you know, unlike Balaram. So it is, I saw something here where Sri Prabhupada was saying, excuse me, that one may then ask, why did Lord Chaitanya exhibited his anger? And Sri Prabhupada is saying that the point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insults to one's own self. But when Krishna or his pure devotee is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. So this is what Lord Chaitanya demonstrated. And so if we can take a cue from this, when we get offended, insulted, we should accept it, we should tolerate it. But if I find somebody blaspheming or insulting another devotee, and I know that this devotee does not deserve to be treated that way, then that is what Sri Prabhupada is saying. We should act like fire and be ready to burn. But unfortunately, most of us, we don't do that. And we don't do that because we are afraid of committing offenses, which is true. We need to be very much afraid of committing offenses. But being afraid of committing offenses in the face of a devotee being mistreated, which is which? So we are all individuals, and who I am is who I am, who you are is who you are, who he is who he is. And so we're all going to be different. But my thing is, when someone is a Vaishya and he sees someone who has Brahminical qualities, he should not condemn such a person that he has Brahminical qualities and he should have Vaishya qualities. So, or vice versa. But the fact is that anger is a very, very important emotion that we all need to learn. I mean, I'm talking about it as if I know how to use it. I don't know how to use it, but I'm talking about it to try and remind myself, because in the face of anger, like Mother Lila, you were saying, in the face of anger, it's very difficult to control yourself. The anger controls you. So I'm trying to learn how, in the face of the heat of the anger, I'll be able to control my senses and slow down as you advised. So thank you for the advice. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, I really appreciate that. I just had a huge realization with you saying that this, and Mitravinda Prabhu, I think, brought it up also about using anger in this way. Perhaps that's the non-perverted reflection of or source of anger, to use it in a protective manner, rather than I'm usually angry because I'm thinking of something self-centered, like I should be respected, I should be treated a certain way, me, rather than how angry do I get when I see some injustice. And even within our Krishna consciousness family, if we all did that, got angry when we saw some kind of injustice being perpetrated, then things would change a lot. So I really like that point of just taking the objective of anger and using it in a way that does increase our compassion, our love for each other, rather than trying to grow my own position and my own standing and my own, I need this much respect, I need to be treated in a certain way. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna always try to remember that I can use my anger in a different way, and in that sense it is appropriate. But how often do we do that? How many of us do that? Sometimes it feels like the problems are much bigger than us, and so it just it can be difficult a little bit to know that we can create some change. So perhaps if we just start creating that within ourselves, and then if enough of us do it, then it'll be easier for us as a whole, as a family. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna really meditate on that, of how Krishna really uses anger appropriately. It's always for his devotees, never for him.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else with something to share? Lots of devotees are quiet today. Hey, Hare Chakra Prabhu. Parlez-vous, s'il vous plaît?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mother, for your class. It's amazing class, and the way you are interacting with everyone, it makes it more lovely. I just want to react a little bit to I think the questions they was asked, and the examples that has been given. We know that all these attributes, they are for our own good, but somehow or the other, because we don't know how to use them, that's how we don't properly use them. But I was just reflecting my personal realization. I was reflecting on, like, when we take, for instance, the ongoing World Cup tournament that is going on. The World Cup, the countries, they don't just wake up one morning and fly all the way to where the World Cup is being played to go and play the ball. No, they have to prepare, and they have to set a scene that is exactly like how the World Cup field is, the soccer field will be, and they will learn how to train, and they will learn how to play as a team. They will all do all that at home before they bring that team to the World Cup field. Because if they don't practice at home, then when they come to the field, they will be useless. So similarly, what I'm thinking is that Krishna has given us all this field of play. He has given us the playing grounds where we can train ourselves to gradually come to that level of actually participating in the actual game. And it starts right from our home. We live with our family, so that is where the training grounds begin. So it's not like when we are at home as families, we don't get angry at each other. We do, but when we get angry, what do? Do we kill each other? We don't. We try to utilize the anger in such a way that it will bring up some sort of correction, some sort of bring people to their senses, where they will realize that maybe whatever they had performed, they need to do better somehow or the other. So if we can practice it at our homes, then that will gradually expand it to come to our temples. And from our temples, if we are able to practice it like that, then it will expand it to come to our community. Then from the community level, it comes to the city, to the whatever it is, gradually, and it expands gradually. And when Krishna realized that now we have been able to practice properly, then Krishna will realize that, oh yes, now they are ready. They are ready. They can practice it at the game field, which is back home, back to God. But as long as we haven't gotten it right, he's not going to take us back home, because we can't practice it. Even on the training grounds, if you are not getting it right, why would Krishna bring us to the actual field to come and do it? So I'm thinking we should all see, I mean, when we get angry at home with our wife or with our children, how do we react? Do we kill them? Or do we sometimes we say we keep a distance. Of course, sometimes you can keep a distance with your wife, but for how long? So I think Krishna is so merciful. Like I see the way Srila Prabhupada was doing that. If you see the whole process, the way Srila Prabhupada, built ISKCON right from scratch, he built it like that family core. He built it like a family, the family core. And so his compassion and everything was being expressed like a man living with his children, and the same way. And gradually, that love that he was able to express as a family is what brought this movement up and up and up. So it's up to us to, personally, this is how I feel, that it's up to us to try to bring that family set of mentality, the family type of mentality into this. And this is the only way that we can make progress. Because when we bring the family, emotions in everything like that, then when someone is even offending us, and we become angry, we will know how to direct our anger to bring progress rather than destruction. So this is the little piece that I have. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Jai, Hari Chakradas, Prabhu, that was so beautiful, so well said. I really appreciated that. You're talking about each of us taking responsibility for our own stuff. And not only that, but real fraternity, right? This is, yeah, I'm bringing it back to Prabhupada, who wanted to build this family. What is it really about? If we're all going to be, if we all are brothers and sisters, what does that mean? But being responsible and seeing how it, even in the home, to teach our children how it is possible to have emotions and to transcend them at the same, in addition to having them. It's not just, a lot of us were raised that way of, don't think about those things. No one even asks about it because there were other priorities, such as survival and things that way, or even just culturally may not have been acceptable to talk about emotions or to even have them. So how could we learn? So yeah, what you're talking about is the core of everything, because it's about us at the individual level and us in our family, in our core family structures, and then that will start spilling out into our communities and our countries. And then so also this idea that conflict is actually what helps us grow. So through getting angry, And through talking to each other, having some dialogue, making requests, being able to express ourselves in a healthy way, conflict actually will bring us closer, and it's the perfect thing for growth if we see it that way. So I really appreciated that. Thank you. I hope that things will be just as you said them, because it's a beautiful vision for us, for our Krishna consciousness family.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Mother Lila, I want to put the verse back on the screen, and we try to digest it a little bit more. Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines. So similarly, it's not a very long paper, but it's 2, 2, 2, 2 fully loaded. Because here I see Srila Prabhupada saying that here, but factually, the Brahmin boy himself was Kulangara, wretched. And because of him, the Brahmin caste become powerless, like the snake whose poison teeth are broken. So from this Shringi, Brahmins, who are supposed to be the head of the society, the priestly order, they become powerless. They lose their powers, and they use where the personality of Kali conquered the Brahmin boy first, and gradually the other castes. Thus, the whole scientific system of the orders of society in this age has assumed the form of a vitiated caste system, which is now being uprooted by another class of men similarly influenced by the age of Kali. So I put this thing here to remind us, and also to use that to ask my question. That we've seen from Srila Prabhupada's purport here that the Brahmin boy is the beginning of the fall of the Brahminical culture. And in a world where there is no Brahminical culture or cow protection, then there can be no civilization. So if this Shringi is the cause of the demise of Brahminical culture, which Srila Prabhupada is saying, because they are the head, and then Kali first entered into the head and caused damage, and from there on, other castes also started doing the same nonsense. Now we are all almost dead. Is that the reason why in today's world, you see the priestly class more, I was going to use a bad word, more cheating than the rest of the castes? I mean, regardless of which country you live in, everybody is making profit by using the word of God. That is how degraded the world has become. The easiest way to amass riches is to use God's name. So there is one song, it says, stealing in the name of the Lord. People are stealing in the name of the Lord. And even though they are stealing, they are still highly respected. But I am thinking that the root cause of this stealing is that of Shringi, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining here. So if Maharaj Parikshit, after knowing that this Shringi has committed this mistake and did not discipline him, then who are we to discipline these cheating priests of today? Don't you think that if Maharaj Parikshit had disciplined Shringi, then that probably could have had a ripple effect, that governments, proper governments, could also discipline these cheating priests all over the world. in America here, you know, they're everywhere. There is one priest, this tele-evangelist, I won't mention the name. He had his own aircraft. He had his own airplane. And then he's telling the congregation that God spoke to me and he was asking me. And God mentioned his name. Do you still have interest in your aircraft? And he said, yes, my Lord, I am. And the Lord said, no, I don't think you are. I think it's too old. You need to have another one. You need to have a new one. And he went and bought a new aircraft. Ash. This is what he was saying on television. And the congregation, they were all clapping. You know, such a cheating person. But nobody can discipline him because I am thinking that Maharaj Parikshit did not discipline or punish Shringi. So in this age, when we know clearly that this priestly class are cheating, do governments have any right to discipline these cheating priests? And if they do not have rights to discipline them, then what do we do? And where do we go? Hare Krishna.
Most difficult question.
Oh.
You know, as you were saying that, it's going to be hard for the government to discipline any class that's cheating because often our governments are also cheating. So that's what makes it so difficult. Who has the right to say, because everyone's really in the same position, you know, where we're all impure. So, you know, how can we tell someone else about doing it? So yeah, I think any system that has that within it is not going to be able to tell any other system not to do it. So this is the unfortunate part, where who is left here that is righteous. And I think that it's so serious that this can actually help us get really sober about our Krishna consciousness, because it's so insidious. It's everywhere. Everyone is cheating. Everyone is committing these. Basically, the problem is misuse of power. That's why we see, you know, these higher systems, say like political systems, the government and the priestly class that you were mentioning, is they have the most power, and so we misuse it. This is what the boy was doing too. He had this power to curse someone, and he misused it. So unfortunately, it goes back to that thing about you know, just give someone power. I think Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj quoted this a lot. Give someone power, and then you'll see what they will do with it. And so this is the illness of our age. I don't know the answer. I think the only thing we can do is, going back to what Hari Chakradas was saying, is it starts with ourselves, and it starts with in our homes. Because how can we try to talk to someone about these things if we're not at the very least seriously practicing trying to purify our own psyches and our own consciousness and our own emotions? We have to at the very least be working on it to be able to even speak about it, to say it. Otherwise, it's only going to go, it's going to lose some of its power, some of its potency. It won't have it if we're just kind of paying lip service. And so the reason why it's so encouraging in a way, in the sense that it's scary, is that we can see within the priestly class and the governing class of our countries, no one is exempt from falling into illusion and from misuse of power. No one, even within our own Krishna consciousness movement. The Krishna consciousness movement, we do have the highest philosophy, we know this, but we are not exempt from illusion. We are not exempt from false ego, and we're not exempt from these ideas that we, deserve this, deserve that, have the right to do this, the right to do that. This belongs to me. I'll treat people however I want. No one's exempt. So what that says to me is that I have to be very, very, very careful, because even even the people who have the highest places, right? Because like we were saying, service is service. There's no higher or lower. But even within these different social positions, people can still fall and misunderstand and mistreat others. And so that has to be my prayer, that I have to, like, please, Krishna, help me be diligent, help me not to cause harm, not to misuse any of the things that I've been giving. Because it's ultimately, Prabhupada says this, that the reason why we're here, going back to that argument of the fall of the jiva, the reason that we're here is because of our own independence. Our free will is so, what's the word? Our free will is so complete that we can make the choice based on our independence to end up here or to go back with Krishna. So the only thing we have control of is ourselves. But it is very, I think the more time that passes, the more I realize what it means when Prabhupada said to be sufficiently afraid of Maya, because it can come even when we think we're doing the best and righteous thing. We can still be under illusion, but we don't know it because we're under illusion. So that's the prayer, right? Help me see, help me, remind me. And that's, if I can learn it for myself, then that's really all I can do. I have no chance of teaching anyone anything, because they're on their own path and Krishna's in charge of their path. But if we each individual just took responsibility, this is why Hari Chakra's comment was so important. Taking responsibility for ourselves and for our families. If everyone did that, then the entire society would change. And we wouldn't have to go out and teach it. We can just live it by example, right? That's the Bhagavatam says, even having a conversation with a pure devotee can change our life completely. Or even with Bhagavatam, the book, because it's the same as Bhagavatam, the person, because the book can help us change our lives the same way that coming in contact with the person changes our lives. And so to take that seriously and really work at it is why we're here. Otherwise, we're just going to carry these things to our next place. It goes with us in the subtle body. So our psychic backpack that we're carrying from lifetime to lifetime, these little tendencies of the ego, of entitlement, of righteousness, they don't go anywhere. We just put them away for the next trip. So that's important to remember.
Thank you so much, Madalena. I think we may have to bring the class to a close, so we're going to let you go, except the devotees have something to share. Otherwise, we've been here for about 2 hours. Thank you so much. And it's been more interactive than our usual one speaker and everybody listening. Jana, do you have a question? Jana is my niece.
No, thank you, Uncle. I'm just gratefully listening.
You don't have a question? You don't have anything to say?
No, thank you. I thank you everyone for your comments, and thank you, Lila Devi, for your class. There's just lots of food for thought.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Janavatsa.
Thank you so much. So
Hare Krishna, I wanted to say, if I might, really quickly.
Yes, please go ahead.
That thank you, Jana, who's also my niece and our niece together, and everyone else who knows her parents and everything. But I would just like to encourage, I mean, not forcibly, but more Matajis, even though we're not our bodies, to, share, participate. And again, I know, we're always busy as mothers, as devotees, as well as the jivas in male bodies. But I just wanted to throw that out there. If other devotees who are women have questions or even want to just share something on their heart or a thought, this is such a comfortable and protected platform that I think this is actually the place to do it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Madam Mitravinda. Mitravinda is originally one of the principal 8 consorts of Shri Krishna. So when she does speak, we need to listen to her. Hare Krishna. So,
I agree.
well, I do not want to call names. I do not want to get people on the spot. So we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute. And then we chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to Grace LILA Devi for such a wonderful, interactive Srimad Bhagavatam discourse. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama, Hare Hare.
Kalpatarubhyascha,
Kripa Sandhya Ivacha, Kirtanam Bhavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
All glories to the grace, Lila Devi ki.